I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former world champion Scott Mitchell. Thanks very much for your time, Scott. How are you doing?
No, good. A bit wet this morning. It was a bit rainy this morning, but yeah, no, we're back in the dark life now. So yeah, it's all good.
Excellent. Well, we last had you on back in early February of this year, and a lot's obviously gone on in the 6 or 7 months since then. But for yourself, the first big milestone really was getting on the Pro Tour a few days later after we spoke and getting a certain Michael van Gerwen in the draw for your first game. What was your reaction when you saw that draw?
Yeah, I think my reaction was the same as everybody in the room, because obviously it was game one, board one, streaming board one, and it was the first game called out. So Michael van Gerwen versus Scott Mitchell, and I think everybody in the room had a little chuckle. But it's a baptism of fire. We know it's a different animal over there, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was ironic in that game. I actually shot out the 2 legs that I beat him, that I got off him, and the 6-2 loss was a 170 check out and a double one. So yeah, you couldn't have had more adverse if you tried.
Well, before the tour and everything else went into lockdown, you did have a good run of getting into Players' Championships based on how well you did on that first weekend on the Challenge Tour. So how did you find it turning up to the Pro Tours and playing against the best players in the world?
It was exciting. It was a very different bunch of people, but at the same time, it's not a bunch of people that I didn't know. I have so many friends over there anyway from their BDO days, and they, the John Hendersons and all those sorts of people that, and obviously more recently does it. So it wasn't a difficult transition really. It was just a case of me trying to make not more of it than it actually was. I think sometimes you can make the wrong sort of mental attitude towards it, thinking you've got to play so much better and this, that, and the other, and you've just got to get your game out there, because that's why you're there, because you're good enough. So yeah, it took me a couple of the first Pro Tours to get that round in my head, that not to make more of it, and I think I've kind of done that. And I've really enjoyed it. I've got to be honest, I really enjoyed it.
And when March came around, obviously everything went into lockdown. There was no darts, no tour to play on for a good 4 months or so. What was it like for you then? No darts and not having the travelling. How did you find that break?
I was one of the lucky ones, if I'm honest, because the Modus Icons League came into play for me, and I was playing at home and playing 2 or 3 times a week. So I didn't have the downtime that maybe some of the others had. Not ideal playing at home. Everybody thinks, you want to see what I do when I play at home, you want to see my practice. Well, we kind of saw it. Some of the guys really loved playing at home, and some of the guys, it didn't quite suit them. For me, I was sort of like working at the same time, so it was a case of getting my work done in the morning before the 3 or 4 games during the day, or 5 games, whatever I had. But I really enjoyed it. I think Martin Adams embraced it. He had some great results. Mine were very in between, and it just depended on what I was doing that day. But I really enjoyed it, so I didn't have the downtime that most others had, and it kept my arm moving, and you were kind of getting hired to practice for yourself, really. So that ended in about August, but we were having breaks because obviously you couldn't go right through and do 3 months of playing 3 days a week. That wasn't possible. You needed weeks off here and there, and I got those as well. So I didn't actually stop, but I enjoyed what we did.
And away from the darts, if your Wikipedia page is right, you celebrated your 50th birthday during the lockdown. What was that like, hitting 50 during the lockdown? Was there much of a celebration you could do?
Not really. I mean, the lovely thing was my daughter and my wife arranged video messages from people all over the place, and they were from the darts world, and some of them were so much fun. It was, I think we had just under 100 messages, so I was sat in front of the TV for well over an hour and a half watching people giving me messages, and I can't thank them enough. It was a great surprise for your 50th birthday to have so many messages from so many people, and some I was crying with laughter because some of the things they were doing were so funny, and some were just so heartwarming and heartfelt from dear friends of many years, old school friends. It had me in tears. So we had planned to have a big bash in a barn and get a disco and have an outdoor party and sort of make a bit of a go of it, but unfortunately COVID put a stop to that. So we'll have to try and maybe make that my 51st or my 52nd, depends where the COVID's going, because I don't think any of us are sure at the minute.
No, you're definitely right. And back to the darts then, in July we saw the summer series, and as I mentioned earlier, you were one of the players to get invited through that Challenge Tour list, and then obviously you played the autumn series a couple of weeks ago now over in Germany. What was the experience like for you then, playing in that bubble scenario and playing the 5 days back to back?
Well, initially I was apprehensive, I've got to say. You know, we were at a time there where nobody was really doing anything, and I should never. You should never doubt the PDC, that their organisational skills are second to none. They know the game inside out. They know the way the players are going to react inside out. And I went to Milton Keynes, and it was new for all of us. Some people, you know, it suits some and not others. To be tested and put in your bubble in Milton Keynes was very difficult. I think my COVID test took about 24 or 26 hours to come back. So that was difficult waiting. I was frightened to unpack, because although you were there and you were invited, until you'd had a negative test, you kind of I couldn't relax and unpack. So I'm sure each player is different, but I played okay there. I played some good stuff there. Had some good results, had some results where maybe I could have done a little better, but I think that's the nature of the game over there. The games are so tight that first to six in the best of 11 is very difficult, and you think you've got more time than in a best of five. I used to play in the BDO, but you haven't. It's still that one mistake can cost you the game because of the standard of players. And I managed to win a few games there, and I've not gone over trying to set the world alight. I've gone over trying to prove to myself more than anything that I should be there with the players that are there. And secondly, try to gain respect within that circle of players. You know, there are a lot of egos in there. Some big egos, some little egos, and some have none at all. So it's very difficult. It's all new, and it was all new to all of us to go into playing 5 days on the trot. It's very different than playing one on Saturday and one on Sunday.
And you touched on the BDO there. Obviously, there's been a lot of developments regarding them over the last few months. We know that the UKDA, they've taken over the county game, and yourself, you made your name in the BDO, being a world champion. What have you made of all that's gone on in that side of darts?
It's so disappointing, really. I mean, you know, we all started there. It was what it was, and it was never trying to be anything superstar-y and what have you. The whole idea of BDO was to to give a chance to a working class guy to be a world champion, and that's what they did, and that's what it was. And it's going to be very difficult to ever see that kind of thing happening again. You know, I'm sure the WDF are going to take the mantle and try and sort of take on from where the BDO have unfortunately failed and left off. I think sometimes the players are forgotten, and I felt that we had started to be forgotten sort of midway through 2019. Really, things have been changing, and your product is only good. You know, your top players are your top players. That's lovely, but they need the information, and you're expecting them to go onto the stage and perform as best they can, and sometimes we just weren't getting the information. We weren't. I remember, I think the World Dart Trophy in 2019, I think we had about 3 weeks' notice of where the venue was and what it was going to be and where it was going to be. And you had your alarm bells were ringing way before anybody else was thinking of it. You know, the top players. It's a shame, because I really do feel that the system worked solely because the way that I was found, I was playing in my little local league in Ringwood and started to be one of the better players in the league, and then all of a sudden you're asked to go to your local Super League team by the Super League captain, and they find you, and then you start getting good in your Super League and showing your worth, and then your county come along and grab you, and it was just a really easy, natural progression. You didn't have to travel miles to be found. You know, you didn't have to travel 2 and 3 hours to enter a certain tournament to be found. If you were good enough in your local league, you were found by those Super League captains and stuff. So I think that's going to be hard to replicate although, you know, the UKDA have now taken on the sort of county side of things, which, in my opinion, that it was never broke. The video, that wasn't the part of the video that was broke. So when the Tri-Nations came in saying that they wished to take it on and what have you, I found that a strange move, because I thought the video was still doing everything really well at the county. So but we can't keep looking backwards and saying, you know, what if, and this shouldn't have happened and that should have happened, and it's gone, it's done now, and we've just got, for me, I thank my lucky stars that it was there when I needed it. You know, I will be forever thankful to the BDO and the people that ran it over the years that I played in it. You know, it's although I've been around for the last 10 years on the circuit, 10 or 11 years at qualifying for World Championships, you know, I played right the way through the system, from Super Leagues and stuff for over, and county for 20 years, you know, and Super League for 10 years before that. So I'm sad that it's gone, but I'm sure that we will have something, there will be something in place to try and replace it, and I hope that it replaces it with a little more success than the BDO ended, really.
Definitely. Well, let's look ahead then, and we're talking on this Friday afternoon. This time next week, all things being well, you'll be playing in the Challenge Tour, which resumes in Barnsley. You've got 6 events in 3 days to finish off the Challenge Tour, and we spoke off air before we started this, and you said you've got a few concerns with regards to how these events are going to run. Can you talk us through them?
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we're in a COVID situation, and you know, it's all well and good being in a bubble with the Pro Tour, but the PDC have feel that this is safe still to do. So for me, that's kind of happening, and it's going to happen by the looks of things. So you know, Boris is telling us not to move from one area to the other, and the PDC is saying that it's safe to do so. They've got a doctor now within the system, so they're going to ask. I believe they're going to ask people who feel that they've got the symptoms of COVID not to attend. And be honest with themselves, and you've got to trust that as well. The development tour went well last weekend, and there's been very few complaints about anything coming out of the development tour. There's, you know, players that I've spoken to that were happy with the way that it worked, and you were put on a table of 6, and you know, every measure was taken. You were wearing masks when you weren't playing. You know, I think the PDC are doing everything within their power to make it as safe as it can possibly be. You know, you can make it as safe as possibly can be, and that's all you can do, I think. But you know, you're watching the telly and you're being told to do this, and this, and you know, the realism is that other life has to go on, and at some point it has to continue on. So I suppose now is the time, and so the PDC feel it's a good time, and so we've got to go with it, and being at the number 1, it would be very difficult to not go. It's going to be very difficult to hold that position over 3 days and 2 comps per day, something that I've never done before. You know, the 5-day Pro Tours were hard, were a hard slog, they were difficult. But to have 3 days with 2 per day, the first Challenge Tour I found really difficult. So I'm hoping that you know, I can have a couple of good runs early doors and settle me a little bit, and then concentrate on playing like I can, because there's a lot of pressure going to be on it, and but it's open for everybody. You know, because we've only had 4 Challenge Tour events, and we're going to have 6 in now 3 days. You know, it's still wide open to everybody. So I expect the entry to be large and as tough as always.
Yeah, it's going to be a big weekend for a lot of players, yourself included. You mentioned you go in top of that order of merit after those first 4 events, and we all know what's up for grabs. The players that finish in the top 2 get the tour cards. Whoever finishes top gets that spot in the World Championship, but also based on that order of merit, it could get you in the Winter Series coming up as well. So there's a lot to play for, and I guess if we were to chat this time last year and we were to say you're going to go into a weekend and you could potentially get a tour card, would you have believed that was a case for yourself back then?
No, not at all. I mean, even you know, that January was a really disappointing time. You know, I lost in a semi-final at the O2, and then we didn't get paid the money, and then I went to the Challenge, the Q School, and averaged brilliantly. and didn't get a card. You know, I think I was in the top 3 or 4 averages a week, and but I wasn't one of the lucky ones to get a card. So, and I didn't feature in the table, so that was a bit sad. So then you go to the Challenge Tour the following week again. So it was like within 10 or 15 days. It was a lot of darts in 10, 15 days. And to come out on the top of the Challenge Tour, you could have knocked me over with a feather, really, to be honest. It may show a bit of resilience that I have, and I don't know, or stubbornness, whatever you want to call it. So that was really difficult. And now I sort of know what the Pro Tours are about, having been on them. You know, it's lovely to know what you're aiming for, because I know what it's all about now, but it's also the pressure of, you know, I could know what I'm losing if I don't have a good week that weekend. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, but hey, what don't kill you makes you stronger, mate, I think.
Definitely. Well, just lastly, really, as I say, we're talking 7 days before Barnsley and the last 6 events. What's the plan really between now and then? Will you be stepping up the practice? Is there anything you're going to be putting in place really to get yourself ready?
I'm not a big practicer anyway, and I think sometimes if you step up the practice, you can put too much emphasis on your game, and then things become unnatural. I find is what happened to me. To be honest, I've not had a throw for about 4 weeks since the autumn series. I've come back, and the end of the year when the grass is growing is a busy time on the farm as well. So I've put up a new barn and all sorts of things in the last 4 weeks. So life has been. I've had a ministry TB test as well, which is your annual TB test where all your cattle have to be tested. So I've had a really busy couple of 4 weeks. I started practicing again 3 nights ago, and just doing simple little stuff, 45, 50 minutes, just to make sure your hand-eye contact's still there, and coordination and everything else. And yeah, it felt good. So yeah, we'll have another couple of buzzes of that this week, and do a few fun games and fun practice games that I'll just look up on the internet and decide, yeah, I fancy doing that one tonight. I don't have a set routine. I don't have a regular thing that I really want to do. I just whatever my mood takes me, I go, yeah, I fancy doing a doubles thing tonight, or I fancy doing a scoring one tonight, or and I really do it like that, and I don't do it every day. It'll be sort of like every other day probably now. So another 3 or 4 sessions before we go, and I'll feel ready in myself, because I think I sometimes think that if you overdo it, you can feel that you've overdone it in your head as well. But of course, you don't want to underdo it either. So yeah, it will be concentrating now for the next few days of making sure I'm ready and feeling that I can do a job when I get there.
Well, Scott, it's always nice to catch up with you. Appreciate you taking out the time to have a chat with us, and wish you all the best next week in Barnsley. Hope it's a good weekend for yourself.
I hope you make good luck charm, mate. I hope this interview is my good luck charm. That'd be great if it was.